my name is Tori, this is No Life, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a really fun video where I'm going to be talking about 5 books that I think everyone should read before the end of the year. So these are just some of my favorite books of the year, 5-star reads that I've had. Basically what I did in my reading journal. I have a digital reading journal this year. I'm trying it out. I went through each month because each month I put my 5-star reads on like a separate page. And I went through all of the months, and I don't have that many 5-star reads. But these are ones that I feel like not are underrated, but I want like more people to like give a chance and read, more people to kind of like try out. So with all that being said, it was very hard to narrow down to 5, but I did it. So let's just go ahead and dive into the first one. So the first one is a recent read that I read, and that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. While it does have like a super cute cartoony cover, it is perfect to read during the fall. So it is perfect to read before the end of the year. It is very emotional, and that's really what got me when I read this book and why I gave it 5 stars. So usually if a book can make me cry, which I think most of the books that I have made me cry or at least tear up a little bit. And I just feel like when it brings that kind of emotion out of me to the point where I am so connected to these characters that I physically feel it and I start to cry or tear up or get extremely emotional, then I feel like the author has done its job. I feel like that's just a personal thing for me. I don't know if everyone's like that, but with this one, there's a lot of things that kind of sneak up on you. But the way that Ashley Poston kind of told this story with the whole premise of our female character losing her aunt, which was her travel buddy, like they've gone everywhere together, they've traveled the world together. Now she doesn't have that anymore. She's feeling stuck at work. She doesn't know where she wants to go with her life. Has all of these things up in the air. And so when she inherits her aunt's apartment, she walks in one day after work to find this man standing there, and she has been thrown back 7 years in the past. It's very interesting the way that she wrote it, but it's very easy to understand what is happening. It's not a fantastical element, but I guess you could call it that, where, you know, there's this magical element where they go back into the past, or she goes back into the past, and she's always heard that this apartment that her aunts lived in has had this magical thing. But it's like she always thought they were just stories that her aunt told her when she was younger. But it's actually true, and now she doesn't even have her aunt to ask questions to. So it is very interesting. It is a very good read. I love this book. I love this more than The Dead Romantics, even though I gave The Dead Romantics 4.5 stars, and this is a 5-star read for me. So it's not very far off. But all that being said, Ashley Poston is definitely an author that I've come to love, and I will pick up anything that they write from now on. So highly suggest this one to read before the end of the year. I think it is fantastic, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it. Speaking of very emotional books, I'm going to mention this book because it's one that I've read this year that I really think is extremely important with the mental health aspect in this book, and that is Saving Six by Chloe Walsh. So Chloe Walsh has become an author that I've absolutely fell in love with her writing. I will read anything that she writes, and this book, I think it was originally published in 2019, but it did come out this year, and since I picked this up, it has been a 5-star read. This is the first book in Joey and Aoife's duet, so this is Saving Six, and the second book is Redeeming Six. This one doesn't own a cliffhanger. This one kind of starts when they're super, super young, when they're like 13 and 14. You see the development of this friendship and way and connection that they lean on each other, both of them do, and just how Aoife has been there for Joey since the very beginning. Everything that Joey goes through. And a lot of people say that you should read Binding and Keeping 13 before you dive into this. I agree, because you really get to see Joey as 18-year-old Joey in Binding and Keeping 13. And in this book, we kind of go back to when he's 13, 14 and Aoife's 12 or 13. You know what I mean? So I think that you could read it without it. I think it'll be fine. This book in particular, because the second book, Redeeming Six, kind of picks up where Binding and Keeping 13 is, if that makes sense. So timeline's a little weird, but I think that this Boys of Tommen series is just a series that has touched my heart. I related so much to Joey in this book, and like I said, the mental health aspect of both Aoife and Joey, but more so Joey, in both Saving and Redeeming Six, is just extremely important. And I think if you've ever wondered what it is and what it's felt like to deal with a mental illness, I just feel like that these 2 books really describe it really well. So buckle up for a very emotional ride. Buckle up for a very emotional journey. You're going to get connected to these characters. They are thick books. They are wordy, but the way that Chloe Walsh tells the story, it's like you're living with these characters while they're going through their lives. So that's why it's so long. She tells every detail. She tells from what they're doing day to day, which can be some boring for some people, but it's such an intricate part of how one day can be a good day and one day can be a bad day. So I want to mention this book because it is one of my favorites of the year. It's one of my favorite books of all time. specifically Redeeming Six. So yeah, it's just one that if you are looking for a super heavy and emotional read, that is not going to let you go. Definitely pick up this one. The next book I want to mention is Forget Me Not by Julie Soto. So it's very interesting when I read traditionally published romances now. Sometimes they do surprise me, and this book definitely surprised me. So this book is published with Forever Publishing. I just noticed sometimes that, more so recently, these newer authors that I've never heard of that are now being published, I'm actually thoroughly surprised of how well I enjoy their books, because sometimes traditionally published books, previously in the past, I will say, has not worked for me. But I think that the way that Julie Soto wrote this book really made the book for me. So I am someone who does not like past to present. And in this book, you really get this past to present, and you get her point of view in the present and his point of view in the past, which seems very weird. And you're like, how is this supposed to work? How is this supposed to tell a story? But I promise you, it is the perfect way. I don't think Julie Soto could have wrote this book in any other way, because you see our main male character now and how grumpy he is and all that stuff, but you're trying to figure out why he is the way he is. This is a second chance romance. They're forced to work together. He owns a florist shop and that he's taken over for his father that's been in their family. She is starting her own wedding planning business. She has worked in the wedding planning industry for a while, but she kind of like branched off and is doing her own thing. So it's kind of like that. And she gets this one of a lifetime opportunity to work with these two. Well, one of them's an influencer, so her name is going to be spread across online in like the best way. So it's just all of these different things that come together. Their romance is beautiful, the way that they are there for each other. I think this was such a good romance. It was just such a strong and well-written romance that I really enjoyed it. So I also was surprised this was traditionally published, but Julie Soto has wrote fanfic before. She's wrote The Auction, which is a Germani fanfic, which is next up on my Germani fanfic list. But yeah, very, very thoroughly surprised. I love this cover, and it's one of my favorites from this year, and I think everyone should read it before the end of the year, because I think it's great. Clearly, all of these books I think are great. But the next one I want to talk about is one that did make me cry, and you're actually going to be surprised by this, why it made me cry, and that's Reckless by Elsie Silver. So this is a single-parent romance, kind of. It's kind of a single-parent romance. It's more of a surprise pregnancy, secret baby romance. So we see Winter. Winter is our female character in this book. You've seen Winter if you've read the other books in the Chestnut Spring series, and she has a lot of redeeming to do. She has had a lot of things that happen to her. She has acted a certain way towards certain characters in this series that is not the best. But she has a one-night stand with Theo, and Theo is, I think he's Rhett's from the first book, Flawless, his like person that rides with him and stuff like that. So they have a one-night stand. He's kind of in the family, but then he goes on the road and he's kind of like focusing on his career. She winds up pregnant. So I think the baby, I say baby, he's like a toddler now. I think 2 years old. She's 2 years old. There's just a moment in this book where Theo finally meets his child, and I just sob. Which is surprising, because if you know me, I don't like kids. I don't want kids in my life. But for some reason, the dynamics when people write this accidental pregnancy or single parent where one of the parents are meeting the child for the first time or haven't really been in their life, or they come into their life again, for some reason I find it extremely emotional, because it is. It's not only the romance between the two main characters. You have this dynamic between them being a family. So you have to include that child in the story as well. And some people do that, some people don't. Thoroughly enjoyed this book. I think this was an amazing release by Elsie Silver. Definitely read this one if you haven't already. I feel like that's kind of a given. A lot of people have read this, but it is one of my favorites, and it did make me cry. So I wanted to mention it. And the last book I have is Trust Me by Tiffany Patterson. So this is one that I've talked about, and I think this is probably the most underrated book that I've read this year, that I want more people to read. So this book is a billionaire romance. I love billionaire romances. I feel like a lot of people love billionaire romances, and I feel like this is one that needs more attention. I just really, really loved it. We have our main male character. He's a billionaire. He runs this company. He's doing all these great things. And then you have a female character that is kind of sent into his company to gain access to all of these certain secrets and like the way that the company works to kind of bring the company down. She is forced to do it for reasons I don't want to say, because that is kind of a spoiler, but there is kind of like, if you don't do this, this will happen type of a thing. Well, when he finds out that she's doing this, and they've grown really close up until that, like until he finds out, they've had this really cute caretaking scene. They've both kind of been there. They both kind of developed this friendship, which I thought was really, really interesting and really fun to read. But it's also this revenge story, because halfway through the book, he finds out who she is and what she's doing. And instead of getting her in trouble, he's like, you know what? You're going to marry me. You're going to marry me, because that to you is worse than getting in trouble and going to jail and, having your life taken away. It's like a worse punishment for her. And it really is. And they are forced together. They're forced to live together. It's him trying to get this revenge, but also keeping what his feelings were separate from her, because he did develop feelings for her. She developed feelings for him. It was so good. I want more people to read it. It was a really, really good read. The second book in the series just came out. It's called Love Me. It follows a separate couple, like a different couple in this world. The covers do look similar, but it doesn't end on a cliffhanger. So just want to throw this one out there. I feel like it is so underrated. So if you pick up any of these books, pick up this one and let me know what you think of it, just because I love it so much. Love this one so much. But those are just 5 books that I think everyone should read before the end of the year. It's a mix of indie published, traditionally published, hyped books, books that are my favorite, books that I feel like underhyped and underrated. So yeah, that's all I have for this video. For the emoji, drop the umbrella emoji because it's raining outside and it's gloomy and all I want to do is curl up on my couch and read. So yeah, drop me the umbrella emoji in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content from me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.